Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of YHB TV. That's your Handmade Business Television, a weekly series dedicated to helping you navigate all things hashtag maker life. I am Isaac Watson, co-director of Academy of Handmade, and my other co-director is conspicuously absent again this week. Sharon is still on her epic road trip to and from Texas. She will be back next week, of course, joining me again. So you just get me, except you don't just get me, you also get Kiley, who is joining us here shortly for a little chat about what it's like to be a brick and mortar store owner and what the world of maker shops is doing these days. So at YHB TV, we are trying to tackle a topic each week that we think gets deeper into what's really going on in your business. This is part of Academy of Handmade, which is the business that Sharon and I run that offers support and community and resources and programs for makers like you who are working on building your businesses to meet your goals. And so we're back again this week to talk about more exciting things. Of course, the hot thing on everybody's mind right now is Etsy wholesale going bye-bye, but we're not going to talk about that today. We're going to talk about that next week. So make sure you tune back in at that point. I will put a link in the chat later for June's YHB TV episodes. So while everybody's getting in here, please introduce yourselves in the chat. Tell us who you are, what you do, what you make, where you're from. We would love to see you and say hello. And if you are new to Crowdcast, you will see a couple buttons below the video. You'll see the green button, which is you can click through to learn more about our signature program, Jumpstart, which I'll talk about in a second. There's an Ask a Question button. That's where you can submit your questions to be answered at the end of the session as we talk about things. If you have any questions that come up for Kiley, then we will cover them then. Because obviously I'm not going to ask all the right questions. And then you can use the chat to talk to each other and go from there. So while everybody's getting in here, this episode of YHB TV is brought to you by Jumpstart Your Handmade Business, which is the signature program that Sharon and I offer. Sharon and I have met thousands of makers over the years, and we noticed that there tends to be one major thing that makes it really hard for makers to make progress in their business, and that is getting clarity and defining your roadmap to success. Our self-guided Jumpstart program, that means you can go at your own pace, helps you understand the big picture of your business by setting goals, knowing your numbers, and honing in on the right kinds of resources for the right solution for your business. So you can learn more by clicking that green button for Jumpstart Your Biz. Like I said, it is completely self-guided, so you can go at your own pace. If you want to dive in deep over a weekend, you can spend 36 hours doing that. You can also do it over the course of 3 or 6 weeks if you want. But there's lots of great curriculum in there. We've got spreadsheets and videos and all kinds of fun stuff for you to work through there. The other benefit is that if you purchase the Jumpstart program, you get access to all of the updates and revisions that we make to the program for life, for free, which is great. So that is the scoop there. Now let me bring up Kiley. Hi, Kiley.
Hi.
So here is a little bit about Kiley. For those of you who don't know her, Kiley Fator is the co-owner of Period 6 Studio in Golden, Colorado. She's run the shop with her mom and business partner since 2015 and carries cards, art, jewelry, home decor, and punctuated ephemera, which is, I love that phrase. And I remember reading the bio last year and also still loving that phrase. But they also carry the leather journals that they make themselves. So Kiley is both a maker and a shop owner, which is really gives her great expertise in that realm. So we're happy to have you here, Kiley. Now, last year, we had you on an Ask Me Anything session. You were here with Rosalie Gale from Ugly Baby and Monster Art and Clothing. And we had a really fun conversation about what it's like to run a shop. We got a little nitty gritty about details and things like that. So as Sharon and I were thinking through YHB TV this month, we figured, well, let's have you back and check in and see how things are going. So what's life like right now?
It's really exciting. We've grown a lot, even in the last year. We knew that we had a difficult location, which I would not recommend to anyone. Do not start with a difficult location. That's not a great plan. But we have some momentum. We've found some traction with different marketing tactics, ones that we didn't foresee. Namely, since we carry a lot of cards, we've started doing postal mailings. Doing a postcard, and we see a great deal of them come back, which is a nice surprise. It was kind of a shot in the dark, but that's been one of our most successful marketing pieces lately.
Just direct mail, is that for?
Yep. Just going straight through the postal service with it. You can pick the mail routes, and it's really neat because you can see the average income of where you're sending them to and how many residents versus commercial doors they're hitting. And so we can kind of target the people around us that we think might be closest to our demographic as well. And it's been really fun because you can tell people have carried them around in their purse. They're like dog-eared or they have someone's grocery list on them. So it's kind of a fun anthropological experiment too.
That's great. So, a lot of makers, even a lot of shop owners are turning toward Instagram to really hone their social media presence and get the eyeballs and then convince people to come in and see things in person. But you found this alternate way, an old school way of marketing. What made you decide to try that, I guess? Is it just because you had so many cards and things there?
Part of it was we're very tactile people. We like cards and paper and we like receiving them. And we were noticing a lot of our followers on Instagram are other makers, as well as, people who are looking to us to carry their things, which is great. And I love that they can find me. But it wasn't necessarily hitting the people closest to home. So it was a really great way for us to say, how do we make sure our name is getting in front of those people? And we've kind of scheduled it out so they're expecting them at certain times now. They know that they'll come a couple weeks ahead of a major holiday. So they're looking for them. We've kind of paired that with a loyalty system where people can put in their cell phone number when they come into the store and make a purchase, and done like a dual discount that way. So we're finding that pairing the old school with a little new school is making sure we're more top of mind. And hitting more customers versus other makers.
That's great. So you're able to target the mailing routes, and you have a little bit of demographic data of those areas around you. How is that translating into any kind of return on investment? Is it a relatively low investment to do direct mail campaigns like that?
It is pretty low. We're able to print things rather inexpensively. We don't print them on as high quality as we would like to, because that there's going to be a percentage of them that are just tossed or recycled. So we've been using Vistaprint just because it's inexpensive for what this is. And it comes out to about 17 cents per postcard. Oh, wow. So all in all, you can launch a pretty good campaign for under $500. And we keep track of them. We do collect them when they come in, and we offer them a discount just so we can track a little more who's coming in and what they're buying. And we found that usually the first couple people that come in cover our expense for the entire campaign.
Wow, that's fascinating. That's really cool.
Yeah, we thought so too.
That's great. So let's talk a little bit about your location. If I recall correctly, you're in a strip mall, right?
Mm-hmm, we are.
Shopping center. Recap us a little bit on how your store's set up and some of the challenges there.
Yeah. So we're in Golden, Colorado. Golden is known for its really picturesque downtown. It's kind of an old mining town, so they definitely play up that feel. And that's where Coors Brewery is. So there's a lot of Coors paraphernalia happening too. But we are not in that downtown area, which is the first question we get asked. We're in kind of an up and coming area, lots of new housing and new businesses going in, but we're in a strip center there, partly because of what we could negotiate with the landlord to be there. And it's doesn't have great visibility from the road, which is its main struggle. But it has the benefit of having lots of parking out front and free parking, which is becoming a premium in Colorado. As well as we've got a coffee shop next door, which is great for business, as well as a climbing gym and a fly shop, an angling fly shop, and an orthopedic center, which actually they are a great source of people just waiting for someone else to get a treatment, and they come down and shop. And we get a lot of the business community where they come over on their lunch break.
Wow.
Yeah.
So that sounds like idyllic Colorado to have a gym and a fly shop, and I don't know, I guess
there's a bike shop too. I forgot the bike
shop. So I guess I would love to know a little bit in the last year, what are some of the challenges you've faced as a shop owner, or some of the big lessons that you've learned along the way?
One of the biggest lessons that's kind of a constant struggle is we set out to be all either local or American artists. And making sure we stay true to that is sometimes difficult. You'll sometimes have an artist who most of their line is made in the US, and then there's a couple items that aren't. So really doing my homework. And when I don't do my homework, being really honest with my customers, because they've grown to expect something from me. So if something comes in and it's got the made in China sticker, just owning that. Also sourcing our artist is a constant learning process, making sure we're finding artists who are more job oriented than hobby oriented. And most of that is because they tend to know their pricing a little bit better. When we have approached people who are more in it as a hobby, they don't always have their pricing thought out to where they need to profit. And we then can't charge our customers the correct amount either. Because we often use keystone pricing, and can't always do that if someone is kind of maxed out on their price and they want to charge us that as well. Another constant learning battle is, how to interact with customers. It comes pretty naturally, but it's different when it's your baby than when you're working for someone else. That feeling of being on 100% of the time is a little bit different than being able to maybe blow off one or two customers if you work for someone else. But that being said, I feel like it's made me a stronger salesperson too. So
that's great. How long have you been in the Golden area there?
Yeah. So I am from about a half an hour out of Golden. And I'm a 5th generation Colorado native, which we all say very proudly because there's not a whole lot of us. So I kind of come from the same demographic as that we try to hit, that kind of mountain, outdoorsy, but yet crafty kind of person.
Do you feel like that gives you a unique insight to your customers? Does it make it easier to sell to them and to welcome them into your shop?
Definitely. One of the surprising things we've found is how many male customers we have, especially men in their, I'd say, mid-20s to early 40s, which was a huge surprise to us. But given our neighbors, they're coming over there, they're getting, flies for themselves or tubes for their bike. And then they can also get their girlfriend a card or make sure they send their mom a Mother's Day gift. So it's been really fun to learn how to market very feminine products to a more masculine demographic.
How does that affect your actual merchandising in the store? Have you changed? Have you needed to respond to that demographic shift or that difference in demographics that you were expecting?
I display things more masculine than, if that makes sense.
I would love you to explain what that.
Yeah, I find that the women that come in are a lot more willing to interact with the display. So if the jewelry is, you know, embedded in something, they're still brave enough to go and pick it up. And they're a little more receptive to help sometimes, where the men want to take a full inventory of what they would like to see before they want to interact with me. Then they become really fun, but they want to definitely do the base level shopping before they interact.
I think you just described my shopping style, and I didn't even know that was my shopping style.
Right. Yep. And then they become really fun. I find that the threshold for pricing for men is a lot higher. And I've seen a lot of men, they've come in and they want stationery. And it was a total surprise to us as well. We are actually working on a line of stationery just for the men in our store. Because I probably get 1 or 2 men a week asking for a more masculine looking stationery.
Fascinating. Okay, so you've noticed this demographic shift in your shoppers. You've adjusted your merchandising, and it sounds like you probably are adjusting your sales tactics, and like you have a better understanding of what they're looking for, right? So you can help solve those problems as they after they've done their once over of the store, and then open up to you. You can then dive into that. What are some of the other things you've learned about your customers over the last year?
That they are a lot more willing to buy things than you think. Sometimes I think, especially if you come from an artist background, it's hard to get over that, like, no one's going to want what I make, or I can't charge that for what I make. So getting to that point where you're like, no, they're here to shop, and you don't have to apologize for the price point of anything. In fact, if I try to not carry anything that I can't explain the value of it to someone, which I'm lucky that I'm doing a lot of the sales as well, because I know the ins and outs of why something is special or what makes that artist someone I wanted in the store. Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about being a buyer, because obviously we have a lot of makers that watch this, and I'm sure a lot of them want to know some insights about your buying habits and tips that you might have around selling wholesale. Talk a little bit about what I'd love to know what stage of purchasing you're in right now, or what season you're looking for, and some of the things that you're doing on an ongoing basis to develop those relationships.
Yeah. So for me, cards are something I'm buying constantly. I'm in a great place too, where lots of card artists are reaching out to me. So I don't feel like I ever have not a list of people I want to buy from, which is a nice place to be at. Right now I've already made a lot of Christmas card orders, which makes the 90-degree weather outside seem ridiculous. But as far as Christmas wares, I'm definitely in shopping mode. We go through a lot of ornaments. So right now I'm sourcing those, trying to decide how many we need. We're finally in a place where I have some numbers to go off of, being our third Christmas, kind of. The first one, we had only been open a month, so I don't count it. But I'm finally in a place where I've got some numbers and some anticipation of what people are going to want. So Christmas is something I'm always keeping an eye out for. Jewelry and cards are something I buy kind of on a need basis. See, and then I'm in a unique spot too, where I can always take applications from people. I'd caution people to be too aggressive in that process. Unfortunately, a lot of stores like mine are fairly small, without limited budgets. So as much as I would like to buy everything that I see come in, I don't always have the open to buy in my budget for it. But I do save those emails. And if I've connected with someone, I do go back to them before I go, on the internet or to a market to find people. I definitely comb through those. And the most effective ones are the ones that reached out to me like I was another human and not a form email. I can tell when someone has either gone on my website and read about us or has come in the store before, if there's someone local, or at least has, you know, gone through our Instagram and made sure that they were a good fit for us before trying to pitch to us.
Gotcha. What would you say is the split in how you're finding the artists whose work you're selling, between like people who are contacting you first versus people you're seeking out versus you going to markets, or I don't know if you're going to trade shows or anything like that yet?
We haven't been to any trade shows just because there's the two of us. Eventually, especially the stationery show, we'd love to go to the National Stationery Show. But we'll have to get to a place where someone is watching the store when that happens, because we like to shop together for things like that. I would say, honestly, most of the new artists we carry are people I have approached on my own versus people who have approached me, which that might be an ego thing. I don't really know how that works out. But I am really passionate about what I'm showing. So I go to a lot of local markets and handmade shows, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm looking and trying to be part of the community. So I feel like the people that I really connect with their work, I'm often seeing before they see me. And there are, of course, exceptions to that rule, and people who find me and end up being a great line for us. So, but they're the people that I connect with kind of personality wise too, when they do reach out.
Yeah. So if you're shopping for the holiday season right now, are you finding, are most of the makers who you're buying from or you're preparing to buy from, are they ready to sell you holiday stuff? Do they have?
I would say not a lot. The card artists are. The card artists are on that schedule pretty good of, you know, my line sheet is coming out for 2 holidays in advance from where we are at. I would say they're the best at that, or the people who the bulk of their products kind of fit into holiday. I would say a lot of my makers are not that far ahead as far as reaching out to me and saying, hey, I have Christmas stuff available, which I would totally invite them to do. Especially now that I've got some numbers and I have a better idea of what my budget is and what I'd like to spend. I would love to be able to get some people on the books earlier, and then leave some open to buy for those gems that you find last minute. But I would definitely invite some Christmas sales now.
Wow. What kind of lead time are you expecting from, or are you used to working with when you're doing orders like this? Are we talking 4 to 6 weeks? Is it more? What for, especially for orders? I'm curious.
A lot of my handmade artists, I suppose they're all handmade, but a lot of them are anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
At the holidays, you know, that lead time gets extended, and sometimes you run the risk of it not being met, which I had an unfortunate couple experiences with last Christmas of someone wanting to charge ahead of time and then the product never making it before Christmas. So I'm a lot more particular after those of what I will agree to. But I would love, even now, having anticipated ship dates and being October, November-ish, just so they know also what we're going to need. And I found even with our journals, when I know that I'm going to need to fill an order by that time, that gives me more time to pick up new orders as well, to kind of go above and beyond what I thought we could do production-wise.
Yeah, so that's a perfect segue because I want to talk about your journals a little bit. I remember talking with you before about being both a maker and a shop owner at the same time. I would love to know if you've continued to find a good balance between making journals and running the shop, or if that has proven difficult for one or the other along the way.
I'm definitely more of a shop owner than a maker these days. It requires a lot of time. I'm sure all of you know how long it takes to work on your website and your marketing and all of those things. And also merchandising is a constant everyday task. which I think it should be as well. I think you should constantly be moving things and touching them and making sure they're speaking for themselves. As much as I like to think that I could sell every piece in there, sometimes they need to do the work themselves. Definitely more of my time is devoted to shop owner than maker. But I have noticed that I'm increasingly putting more time aside to make, because if I don't set it aside, I won't do it. So that's even, the night before, clearing off my workspace so that it is geared to making versus shop owning, and doing a little more delegation of my schedule to all different tasks, but especially between the making and the shop owning.
Mm-hmm. How far out do you think you are from hiring someone to help in the shop? Because I imagine that would free up some of your time, not just to go to shows and find more work to buy, but also to work on your own stuff.
I would love to get someone in end of summer, be ready to go for the holiday season. Right now we are closed Wednesdays and Sundays, and I would also like to extend and be open on Wednesdays. We chose 2 days to start with, just so that we, would get up and still want to go to work. Being true Coloradans, we ski every Wednesday and Sunday all winter long. And usually when we explain that to our customers, they find that a good excuse to be closed too. Mm-hmm. But I would love to get someone in there who could be in there on Wednesdays and also extend hours during Christmas season too. Yeah. I think the store shows best in the evening during the Christmas holidays, because you can see the lights from a long way away. Mm-hmm. And everything, of course, looks pretty at Christmas. So yeah. I would love to have extended hours during then too.
Gotcha. That's great. Well, we have a couple questions, so I want to make sure we get to those from the audience. Looks like they're both from Beth. Beth, hello. She's from Southern California. And she says, the first question is, what would you think about one of your vendors highlighting you along with their other stockists on their Instagram stories as kind of a marketing tactic?
I love it. I also am adamant that I share the name of artists when I put their work out on social media. I know a lot of places don't, so that, other stores can't swoop in and steal their artists, but I am adamant that artists get credit for their work. And I love when they tag us when we have a new order and they say, I'm shipping this. It generates like an excitement and a frenzy about things coming in the store. And I think that's really fun. And I love the personability of it being in a story. It makes it seem like, as a store owner and my makers, that we get along, that we are friends, and it creates this, as the customer, they want to be part of that friendship and in the know. So I'm definitely pro being tagged in stories.
That's great. And that seems like a natural answer to me. Do you think there are other shop owners who might feel differently about that for any reason? Or do you think most people would be totally on board with that?
I think most people are on board with that. I don't know why they wouldn't want to, but right. People are strange. But I would definitely, if you're unsure too, ask them. I love fielding questions of all kinds from my vendors. I tend to like the people that I choose to be in the store, so I'm always open for a dialogue in any way that way.
Great. That's a great question, Beth. Thank you. You have another, which I think we talked about a little bit, but she was asking if you were going into any trade shows this summer to find more work. It sounds like that's not quite in the cards for you yet.
Not quite in the cards. And unfortunately, too, I am kind of a child of the internet, we'll call it, where I have found a lot of ways to circumvent spending the money to go to a trade show. Where, of course, the downside there is I don't always get to meet everyone in person on the timeline that I would like to. But especially with like Indie Me, I'm seeing a lot of people that are at the Acre show, which they've renamed, and I can't tell you what it is off the top of my head.
Is that Vegas?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And they've done New York too at the Javits. I would love to go to those trade shows, but I also, to start out, didn't have the budget where I thought I could go in there and make good choices. I didn't have enough of a plan of what we would need and how much money would be coming in. So now having more numbers to go off of, it is something we'd look at doing in the future. Although, again, I have found a lot of ways to circumvent going to them. I have a couple good reps who I love, which those are hard to find too. I would tell you to definitely vet your reps and make sure they are who you want speaking for you. Because there are some that I think are on the dying breed kind of side of things, especially since everyone has their own wholesale side of their websites now.
Yeah, so
that tends to be a really easy way. Yeah,
these are sales reps who rep for a number of brands who you've developed a relationship with to bring you good products, basically.
Right.
Awesome. So, and you had mentioned really wanting to go to the National Stationery Show. Are there any big shows that are on your like top 2 or top 3 list?
That's probably the biggest for me. I would like to go to New York now as well. Those are probably the 2 main shows that are on my radar. Just knowing the style of work that I like to carry. Because we tend to stay kind of true to that American folk style, lots of jewel tones and kind of an American craft look. That's where my background kind of came from to get into this. Was I worked for a furniture artist, Sticks, who shows at all of those events. And that's how I fell in love with the maker movement and as kind of a new wave of the craft movement. So knowing the style of artists I look for, those are probably the big 2.
Yeah, I think there's a trip to New York in your future.
I do too.
Gotta get you some help first.
I was a theater major, so trips to New York are always
in your future. Of course they are. Yeah. At some point I want to do an academic study on theater backgrounds and a Venn diagram with maker businesses, because I think there's a high number of people who come from that end up in the maker community, which I think is fantastic. I think
I can name at least 10. So.
Experience lends so much skill to maker business. It's fascinating. Anyway, that's total tangent. Maybe that's a whole other YHB TV topic. I don't know. So one final question from Beth. She would love to know if you have ever ordered jewelry that you found online without seeing it in person first, without seeing any samples or anything.
I have. And I would say the biggest selling points there are seeing it on people. Because even the quality, I think, comes through sometimes in a picture with a person. I would say, especially in like professional photography shots, you can really tell at least how something hangs. I've been very fortunate that I haven't gotten jewelry after doing that and been upset with the quality.
I was going to ask if there was any buyer's remorse at any point.
Yeah, and I feel like I'm very lucky in that regard, because I'm kind of particular about jewelry. So I think I've really lucked out. That would be also one time where I would read a lot of the reviews. I read the reviews on everything, almost to a disgusting point anymore, but especially on jewelry, that is something that I would definitely comb through. I also will look sometimes through their hashtags, see if there's real life people out there wearing it and what it looks like on someone who isn't styled. And that gives me kind of a good idea of whether or not I'm willing to take the risk. A lot of my jewelry artists are some of my more local artists, and that's partly availability too, where they will come to the store and let me shop in person, which I think is easier when it comes to jewelry. I will also say when I can shop in person with an artist, I always end up buying more than I probably would if I was looking at a line sheet. Yeah.
Awesome. I'm trying to multitask and put some links in the chat while you're wrapping up there. One of the things that you had said before we started the show was that you're starting to expand your price points a little bit, especially around jewelry.
Mhm.
Maybe you can just finish up by telling us a little bit about that process. And then I'm also itching to know who is the artist behind that amazing piece that you are wearing.
Well, first, her name is Arrow. I can't remember how to spell it, but I will find out and put it in the chat for everyone. It was a major, actually, this is a great thing to let you all know. The major selling point on her booth was that she had a picture of it as seen on Grace and Frankie. And I'm kind of obsessed with becoming Frankie in my life. As I've told my husband, I'm like, get excited, that's where I'm headed. So that shelf talker, as it was what sealed the deal. I will throw that down there for you guys when I get a chance. I forget the first part because I got so excited about my
expanding your price point, especially with
yes. Thank you. So we didn't quite know where the threshold on jewelry was going to be when we started. So we kind of kept it to probably under 50, just to kind of feel out where people were. We knew we didn't want to invest in a lot of jewelry that we couldn't move. And we also, at first, were unsure how we were going to merchandise it. So as we've grown, we have, the higher our price point goes, the better our merchandising goes with it as well, where we've added cases for the higher price point items. We just had a beautiful table custom made for us that is a little bit taller, so no one has to bend over to look at jewelry, then fits the aesthetic of our jewelry and our store a little bit better. And we've watched the sales go through the roof that way. And then we've been kind of adding lines slowly that raise that price point, still keeping some more gifty items, kind of laser cut earrings, different materials that kind of cover that bottom price point, but have added artists who are using raw diamonds and things like that, that the price has slowly crept up to $150, which is probably where we'll stay for a while, especially when you consider insurance. We don't want to necessarily have to lock everything up at night. So, but we've gotten a great reception to it. Of course, we're not selling those higher price point items as often, but we have seen people, they get constant attention, and they, again, go to the men who come into the store to shop. They're the ones who are buying the higher price point things. And I think part of it is being able to show them, like, so here's a $40 pair of earrings, and here's the $70 pair of earrings, and they're both handmade, but you can tell this one, they made the ear wires as well as the earring, or this one, they're using a higher quality stone. So it's been a real sale by comparison kind of method, but it's been successful, I would say.
Yeah. How much of your job as a shop owner or a salesperson is educating your customers about handmade in particular?
A lot of it. I'm fortunate being in Colorado, where we've got that maker revolution kind of mindset, where there's a lot of customers who are concerned where their things are coming from and where they're made and where they're sourced. So I'm lucky in that regard. But you also get a lot of people who come in that might balk at prices and might not know why something is so high. So letting them know, like, okay, so these are the components that they've made by hand, and this is their story. I like telling the story of how an artist got from their day job to being a maker. I think that story resonates with people pretty often. And also where they're sourcing their materials. If I can show someone something that we know exactly where the stone has come from, whether it's the local element or the ethical element or a sustainability element, that adds a lot to the story. And those buzzwords that they can kind of latch on to. And you can watch, once you've told them a story or explained to them what makes this piece cool, if they're with someone, they'll turn around to them and retell the story. So that's how I kind of measure if I'm doing a good job at educating, whether or not they feel like they should turn around and tell their friend what I just told them.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you're finding ways to resonate with the values of the shoppers or the values of the people they're shopping for,
Mm-hmm.
as you're telling those stories, as you're conveying all that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wonderful. Okay, well, I don't want to take up any more of your time because we're already running over, and we could just keep chatting. And there's so many more things that I want to talk to you about, but that's fine. So thank you, Kiley, for joining us again on the wonderful live video situation. It was wonderful to have you here. We love your perspective, and best wishes to you and Period 6 Studio. I posted a link to their website and their Instagram handle in the chat there for you. If anybody wants to follow along, check them out. Next time you're in Golden, Colorado, and you're hunting for fishing flies or bikes, or want to go rock climbing, and you want to pop into their studio and check it out, don't go to downtown historic Golden. Go visit.
The bike shop has beer, so we're very Coloradan up in our corner.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thank you everybody for joining us today. Kiley, again, it was wonderful to have you, and enjoy the rest of your afternoon.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Bye.